Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to another episode of Liberty Chalk. My name is Saeed Ali, and as always, I'm your host. Today, I have a special guest from abroad. I have Miss Maria Pia Paganelli. She's a professor at the Trinity University, teaches in the United States, and she's an expert on Adam Smith. So, extremely fortunate to have her join us. Welcome to the show, Maria. So, Maria has actually made a detour. She was here for the mountains, not for crime, and she's not really been at work while she's been in Pakistan, but we had the chance to actually get a hold of her and to talk about, different things in regards to economic ideas, policy, and so on. So, usually in our circles, in the classical liberal circles, there is this understanding of Adam Smith that he might be, probably the founder of economics as we know it, and possibly a proponent of free market economics. But Maria has a much closer look at his work, has had a much closer look at his work, has absolutely dedicated her life to it. So let's talk about that. Maria, how has it been your experience coming to Pakistan? Has Pakistan been welcoming for you?
First of all, thank you so much for hosting me here. It's a great honor and a great pleasure. And yes, Pakistan has been extremely welcoming. Is one of the most beautiful countries I ever seen so far. You have like jewels in the mountains, as well as in the flatter part of the country.
Right.
It's really one of the most beautiful countries. You're very, very fortunate to be in a country like this.
Well, I'm very glad that you've enjoyed your time here, and it's not very easy sometimes for tourists to come to Pakistan and be able to visit the country thoroughly. But let's move on to what you do. So you teach at Trinity University. You're based out of Texas. And what are you working on these days? And what have you been working on through the course of your academic career?
Mm-hmm. So my main interest is in Adam Smith, the so-called father of economics. He worked in the 18th century, so I'm interested in 18th century economic thought, and in particular monetary thought in the 18th century. But Adam Smith is my main topic of research. And within Adam Smith, so recently I've been working on his monetary theories and his understanding of markets.
Mm-hmm.
And his understanding of the relationship between markets and government, mm-hmm. And in particular about the problem of special interest group and lobbying.
Interesting. So let's start with talking about money. It's something that has evolved very, very quickly over the last maybe 50 to 70 years, especially like with the advent of the Bretton Woods institutions. We've seen money behave in much more different ways than we have seen it behave historically. Do you agree with that? Do you think that money is constantly evolving, or does it retain most of its original characteristics?
There are different kinds of money, and I don't think it's very easy to say that we can control money. Mm-hmm. Money is traditionally one of the institutions that is considered to be spontaneously evolving.
Right.
There are attempts to control it, mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that they're successful. Mm-hmm. Just like language is another institution that is considered a spontaneous evolution.
Right.
And there are attempts to control language as well, but again, they're not necessarily successful.
Right.
Money before the 20th century was mostly privately produced or emerging through spontaneous interaction. Now we are more accustomed to think of money as coming from the government, from the state, as like a monopolistic production of the state. But again, it's not necessarily the case. This is not necessarily the case that it will stay like that in the future.
So I recently went through this lecture, a slightly modern lecture talking about how money did not evolve from barter trade. In your study of the history of money, what actually is the real story? How did money come about?
So money has traditionally different functions. One is a unit of account.
Right.
One is a medium of exchange, and one is store of value. The three functions are not necessarily, do not necessarily have to be united.
Mm-hmm.
We think today that they are in the same thing because, say, you count in rupees,
Right.
you exchange your rupees,
And you can save them.
and you save in rupees, right? But traditionally, that's not always the case.
All right.
Traditionally, you can count with one unit, you exchange in a different one, and you save in a different one.
Interesting. Could you give me an example of that?
I count in dollars,
Right.
but I exchange in rupees.
Right. We do that at the government level. We do that all the time. Yeah.
So you count with one unit, you exchange with something else. And in the past, that was the norm. There are some form of money that are called imaginary money, which are money that are imagined, money that do not exist.
All right.
Or they existed in the past, but they do not exist anymore. But you still use them to count.
Okay.
So I give you like a personal example. I was born and raised in Italy. I was born and raised with liras.
Right.
And then the euro came, right? So my mother was old. She still thinks in liras.
Right.
So whenever she mentions a price, she mentions the price in liras. But when she pays in euros.
Right.
There are countries today that have money that are just unit of accounts. I have some experience with Chile, where I spent some time. And Chile has pesos. So you go to the grocery store, the prices are expressed in pesos, you pay in pesos. But also has another another form of money, which is called Unidad de Fomentos, or UF.
All right.
Which is used to price houses,
Okay.
rents, cars, anything that is a large ticket item is priced in UF, but you pay in
Pesos.
pesos.
So what is the utility of that?
The UF is a index number,
Okay.
which is indexed to inflation, right? So whenever you have large fluctuation in currencies,
Right.
It's very, very difficult to have long-term contracts.
Right.
Or like mortgages or investments, just because the fluctuation of the currency, right, is very unstable. And so there's a lot of insecurity. So you want to have like a stable unit of account that allows you to have long-term contracts, mortgages, or long-term debt. So that usually is created in today's societies when you have an unstable currency, like Colombia also has something very similar. So you fix the unit of account and then you pay in whatever currency you want.
Right.
In the past, in Europe, in medieval times, you had a lot of different kingdoms, tiny little kingdoms, with a lot of variation in
Currency?
in their monies.
Yeah.
You also had gold and silver coins that could easily forged. So the value of a coin would be very different in different times. And then you cross to a next city and you have a completely different coins.
Right.
So you want to have something that allows you to have these contracts. So that gives you stability,
Right.
regardless of the variation of the currencies,
Right.
of the money. So those imaginary monies are unit of account that are stable. Over time. And then you can exchange with the medium of exchange,
Yeah.
which can vary.
Right. I suppose in Argentina, they have been doing this for a long time as well. So
you count in dollars and you exchange in pesos, right? It's the same idea.
Yeah. When I was growing up and reading economics, the story that we were told were that essentially money comes from or is a substitute for the receipts that goldsmiths used to give to their customers. Is that the real history? We've also heard of stories that money originated in China, paper money originated in China. So what is the actual version? Where does it all start?
There are different kinds of paper money, right?
Okay.
So as you mentioned, like in the past, we would use gold or silver as money. But gold and silver are heavy.
Hard to transport.
And dangerous as well, right? Because I can steal your coins and it's gone.
Yeah.
Paper has the advantage of being easier to transport and also is harder to steal originally because you had to sign.
Right.
So the first kind of paper money were indeed receipts of gold.
All right.
Right. So, and you had different kinds of papers, meaning I deposit my gold with a goldsmith. The goldsmith give me the receipt, and then I can use my paper receipt to pay somebody, and that person can go to the goldsmith and collect the gold.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one form of paper money. Another form of paper money is credit.
Right.
So I come to you and I ask you, would you please lend me some money? And you tell me, absolutely, do you want gold or silver? Or do you just want a receipt? And of course, gold and silver are more difficult to handle. Right. So I say, I trust you. I trust that you have the gold. Just give me the receipt. So with my receipt, I go, I pay my creditors, and they will come eventually to you to collect the gold.
Right.
But that's a very different system than I deposit the gold, right? Because I'm actually borrowing from you. The other form of paper money that we have is the one that we are most accustomed with, which is fiat money.
That's a modern innovation.
That's a modern innovation, exactly. So fiat money is a money that does not have any backing.
Right.
Meaning that I cannot go to the bank with rupees, with a rupee bill, and ask for gold or silver in exchange.
Right.
If I ask to change the rupee, they will give me different bills.
Right.
And the only reason that people accept that piece of paper is because the government guarantees that that is money.
Yeah, that's what they refer to as a legal tender.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, legal tender is slightly different than fiat.
Okay.
Legal tender is actually the form of money that must be accepted for the payment of debts.
All right.
So if I have a debt with you, I can pay you in pizzas or I can pay you in rupees.
No.
And you can say, I'm happy to accept a pizza as a compensation for the debt.
Yeah.
But you can also say no.
Yeah. But you can't say no to a legal tender.
Exactly.
Right.
You cannot say no to rupees. So that's slightly different. Fiat is a form of money that is money because the government said so. Right. So fiat is a Latin word that is let it be.
Let it be.
Let it be.
Okay.
So it's like in the Bible, the beginning, the Genesis says there's nothing, there's only God. And God says, let it be light.
Right.
Right? So from the word, it creates something, and it says, let it be, fiat lux.
Got it.
So fiat money is, from my words, I create something that didn't exist before.
So fiat, when does fiat enter into the historical scenario? What is the first maybe instance where we're noticing that fiat exists in maybe a similar form to what it is like right now? Is it coming from central banks? I've come across stories, for example, about how the Bank of England might be, like at the center of the evolution of fiat. Is that so?
Central banks are important important today for the presence of fiat money, but I don't think that the Bank of England was the original source of it.
Okay.
This is just my understanding, but again, like I'm not. There may be different stories. One of the first experiment with fiat was probably the French Revolution.
Right.
So you had a large amount of debt to pay, and you cannot increase amount of gold, but you can increase amount of paper.
Right.
And from that is like, okay, I'm not backing it anymore. I'm suspending the conversion. But the fiat money as we know it today is a very recent creation, right? Is a 20th century creation.
I see. And you know, I mean, you're familiar with organizations like the Atlas Network, and, you know, there are a lot of academics in the Atlas Network, for example, and even in our circles who talk about maybe going back to the gold standard. Now, how do you see such suggestions? Do you think that fiat is a valid form of money? And do you think, where is it all heading is what I'd like to know.
One of the advantages of fiat money is that it can be produced without limit. Right? As long as you have a working printing press, you can produce fiat money. But you cannot do the same with gold. Right? There is a certain amount of gold present. You can change that quantity a little bit, but not that much. Why does it make a difference? Because if you are a government and you spend a lot, and you spend more than what you earn, you have a lot of debt.
Yep.
And the easiest way to pay the debt is to inflate it away.
Right.
Meaning to reduce the value of the money that you use to pay it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With gold, you can do it, and it has been done in the centuries, but it's difficult, right? Because you can cut gold in smaller parts.
Yeah.
Add alloy to it, and pretend that the coin is still the same. But it's difficult to do it.
Right.
With paper, it's very easy.
Yeah.
And you have examples of hyperinflation only when you have fiat money.
Okay.
So the most clamorous example of hyperinflation, Germany after the First World War, Hungary after the Second World War, recently Zimbabwe, Argentina.
Yes.
Right, but those are all examples of, in this century, or in this century, meaning in the last 100 years, when fiat money is introduced. Right? You cannot do it with gold.
You can't do it with gold. But you can't grow as fast with gold money, I suppose, then as well, right? Because it keeps running out.
Right. But paper doesn't run out.
Paper doesn't run out.
And so the people who like to go back to gold are people who see the problem of government spending as having no controls, no checks.
Right.
Because the government can always go to the bank and say, print more, please.
Right.
And if not, I'm going to punish you. So the people who claim that gold should be brought back are people that see the problem of government spending having no checks.
Right.
In practice, I think it's going to be very difficult to make that kind of transition, just because there are a lot of forces at play.
Right.
That are not necessarily going to go in the direction that people want. But the problem of fiat money is that if the central bank is not independent, then you may have problems of inflation or hyperinflation.
I see. So, I mean, we've seen a great deal of interest. I remember, I think it was maybe 2007, when I first came across the white paper that was written by Satoshi Nakamoto, who wrote the white paper on Bitcoin. And then we had this immense interest now in decentralized currencies, in essentially what I think are fiat currencies. These are where they are maybe expanding at a predetermined rate or under a certain algorithm, and they have this intrinsic value that has emerged over time. Now, do you think that modern cryptocurrency behaves very similar to how fiat works, or do you think there is some difference, and do you see things not headed towards another direction?
It's a very difficult question to answer, mostly because, again, if you do think that money is an evolving system, is not necessarily clear in which direction it will evolve.
Right.
So crypto is very much used, but how much will it be used in the future and under what condition is not something that is easy to predict.
Right.
The major difference between crypto and the current fiat system that we are more accustomed to is that I can produce Maria's notes, right? Only the Central Bank of Pakistan can produce rupees,
Right.
Legally at least. And with crypto instead is a open access, like you can
Anybody
can participate. So that's, I think, is a major difference. The other major difference is the willingness to accept. So for any form of money to be successful, it needs to be accepted. So if I give you a piece of paper that says, I will pay you 1,000 rupee tomorrow, you are willing to accept it because you trust me, or because you trust that if you give it to somebody else, that person will accept it.
Right.
So the success of crypto has to rely on the trust that you have in the issuer and in the trust that you have in other people accepting it.
Right.
With rupees or other government currency, you may not trust the government necessarily, but you trust that other people, or at least that you can pay taxes with it.
Why do you think that in modern currency, the currency issuing function has sort of settled down with governments? Why has it become a public sector good instead of maybe a private good as it previously has been, and seems to be also in the crypto market? Why do you think fiat settles so well with a government-backed agency? I know that central banks sometimes are independent and sometimes they're not independent, but still working under some kind of framework. But why is it that the government institution actually has got involved in money and not...
Who's the largest debtor in Pakistan?
Who's the government of Pakistan?
Yeah, you go.
So the border owns the bank.
I mean, the government has, or the larger debtor has all the incentive to control money, right?
Right.
Because if I can have more money, the value of each banknotes will decrease, or the value of money will decrease. So that means that I can pay my debt more easily.
Interesting. So this
and usually it's not just in Pakistan. Like usually the largest debtor in any country is always the government.
Is always the government. So that's really interesting. We're also seeing this example now of governments adopting cryptocurrencies also. So I think there's something going on in South America right now, I think in Bolivia. And even Pakistan has developed this council on cryptocurrency, and they are looking to issue a centrally backed government CBDC soon as well. So what do you think about these kinds of ideas now? Governments trying to innovate with digital currency, trying to innovate with cryptocurrency. Is it because fiat as it exists today is starting to lose its relevance?
So this is just my guess. But I see two possible reasons. One is I don't want to have competitors.
I see.
So I'm going to try to control it, put it under my umbrella, I keep a very close eye. You're not competing with me.
Interesting. I think that's the U.S. government's approach towards,
And the other, especially for some Latin American countries, maybe I am so in such deep trouble
Yeah.
that I need to have something vaguely stable before everybody runs away.
Right.
Everybody, I mean, every investor runs away. And so I'm going to find a substitute to my currency to give some form of stability. Right? So why do countries dollarize? Right? Why do you want to adopt like somebody else's currency?
Yeah.
Just because like you're so messed up, right? That like everybody's running away from you,
Right.
and you need to give some sort of signal. Please don't run away. Just stay here, dear investors. I'm going to give you something that you can count on, you can rely on.
Right.
So I think those may be the two.
What was Adam Smith's approach towards money? What do we learn from his writings?
So Smith lived in a time before central banks and before fiat money.
Yes.
So he was very strongly in favor of the Scottish system of banks, which today we will call free banking.
Okay.
So each bank was free to issue its own currency. So there was very strong competition among banks. For Smith, that was a very safe way to self-control money supply, in the sense that Smith didn't see that competition among banks of issues would create inflation.
Right.
But it would actually control inflation.
Okay.
Right. So if you have only one bank, the incentive to inflate are high because the bank earns from issuing more money.
Right.
But if you have competition among banks, you will choose the one that gives you more stability. Right? So for Smith, having a competitive banking system of issues was a way to make sure of price stability. Also, it would make sure to have financial stability, in the sense that if you have several small banks and one of them fails, and Smith said, and they will fail, because it's decentralized, the damage are local. If you have instead a system or one big bank, and that bank fails, the consequences that the whole system collapses.
Yeah.
And instead to have several different banks of issue, the circulation of each notes is limited, so the damage will be limited. So he saw free banking as a way to have both price stability and financial stability.
Right. But I think there might be certain advantages to having a larger number of participants on a single currency. I think maybe in terms of value, the value of the currency might improve. When a large number of people are dealing with it instead of a small group of people, I think maybe that is why we have gravitated towards having a large number of centralized currencies. But okay, that's very interesting. But let's talk about you come from the developed world, and I believe you're originally from Italy,
yes,
even though you live in the US now. So how do you compare countries like the United States and Italy, which have been developed for a really long time and have completely different demographics and economic dynamics, against countries like Pakistan that are not just newly independent, relatively speaking, but also are struggling to make themselves be established in the global economic scenario. How do you see countries like Pakistan, which are not fully developed, evolving over the next few years? We're seeing the world get rich. The global growth is there as well. But do you think that countries like Pakistan will ever be able to come to the same level as those countries in Europe and the US? And what keeps us from, getting there?
So Yes, Italy is a developed country, but it's also a stagnant country.
Right.
Right. So there hasn't been any significant economic growth in decades. Population is declining.
Yes.
And if Italy continues the current immigration policies of closure, I think Italy will decline very, very soon.
Right.
Right? The advantage that you have in Pakistan, I think, is that you have a very large young population, which is much more dynamic than a decline in old population. I think that with an increase in human capital, and if you are able to maintain or to create openness, then is easy enough to grow.
Right.
Given you're blessed with having a very young population, so just like invest in human capital and invest in open markets.
All right. So you're saying that we have the labor pool to drive growth, and we might even have access to capital. But then, what is the impediment? Do you think it's in most of the developing world? Is it government policies that are actually stifling growth and development?
And the government can play is a double-edged sword, right? Like it can play a positive role as well as a negative role. Again, if the government is willing and able to invest in human capital, I think that would be a very positive thing. If the government is instead more willing to privilege certain special interest groups, certain lobbies, certain groups over others, and close certain avenues, especially in trade, that may be a problem. Right? There are certain kind of investment that are positive and certain kind of investment that are actually not investment, that benefit only specific groups,
right,
but not necessarily the country overall.
Right.
So the government has a very major role that can play positively, hopefully, but it's not something that you can take for granted. One thing that I study Adam Smith, so I'm going to bring him to the discussion. That Adam Smith would say is that the institutions make a big difference. And so he gives the example of China. And he says China is the richest country in the world at that time, but is this stagnant. China hasn't grown since Marco Polo. Right. So the description of China that you get from Marco Polo, the description of China that you get from 18th century merchants is exactly the same, what Smith says. So China hasn't grown despite being rich. Right. Why is that the case? And he gives a couple of reasons. So because China is large, they think that they can rely on themselves only. And so they reject foreign trade, which means you close yourself into yourself so you can grow.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that China at that time closed itself was a factor that prevented its growth and corrupted institutions.
All right.
And he said, if China opened itself to foreign markets and if the institutions are not corrupted, China can grow again. Right? So again, these are government policies. Right. So the government can play a major role in opening the country to foreign markets, allowing competition both within and outside, and try, which is not easy, to avoid corruption. Corruption in all forms, not just like bribing.
Yeah, but irregularities, leakages in the process.
Right.
Well, so
and having laws that are fair in the sense that promote equality and not privileges one over others.
Right. So now the modern China is maybe an argument for central planning. You know, a lot of people who study Adam Smith, who study markets, and who've seen the evolution of the global economy over the last 50 years have seen capitalism and free markets kind of like trump socialism and more controlled and centralized markets or production situations. But then, we have China now. And China seems to put a lot of investment towards centralized planning. It's also a large country with many moving parts. Are we seeing maybe like a revival of centralized planning as a core, driver of economic growth or global growth? Or do you think that the principles of the free market do apply? However, the players have to be more organized like China?
Again, these are just my views. But I tend to agree with an economist called Friedrich Hayek.
Right.
Planning is necessary. The problem is who does the planning. So I need that my tracking agency plans my trip to northern Pakistan very well. It needs to be planned. But I want that agency to plan it, not the government of Pakistan. Right? So planning has to be done, but the question is at what level? So you need to have planning, but it's easier for my tracking company to organize a good trip than for the government of Pakistan to organize a good trip.
Right.
So the planning has to be done, but at the local level rather than the central level. The central level is riskier. You're able to do it in country like China, because again, where does it start from? Starting from very low is easy to grow fast. But once you reach a certain level, I'm not sure that it's going to be easier to keep growing at the same level. So the creativity, the inventiveness that an individual has belongs to an individual, not necessarily to a central government.
Right.
And I think that the incentives that an individual has to better themselves and to better their condition, to use the Smith sentence, are incentives that we have as individuals, and is more difficult for me to tell you how to better your condition than for you to know how to better your condition.
Interesting. So, I'll ask you something about, in your opinion, in your studies of history, which time period in history do you think may have been a golden moment for markets and development? And do you think that we are in some sort of maybe decline in terms of the way that we are interacting economically with each other? Do you see any problems with the modern economic, dynamic?
It's difficult to say because, like, a lot of periods had a lot of free markets, right? Sometimes we tend to look down at certain periods of time as like, oh, those are dark ages. Those are ages with no commerce, but there's actually a lot of commerce going on. Today, depends on where you look at. Like, so if you look at the United States, you're probably better off looking somewhere else. But hopefully in other parts of the world, there is more trust in markets than there is right now in the U.S. The United States at the moment is probably not the best example of free trade.
Right.
And it's not that it was also in the past a very good example of free trade, because there were always a lot of barriers. But right now, the rhetoric, at least, is definitely difficult to reconcile with free trade.
Interesting. In your understanding, right now we're also in a period of wars, right? So, I've come across material claiming that modern conflicts are not as fatal as previously in the past conflicts have been. We see a smaller proportion of people dying as a result of conflicts, but we still get a lot more attention of the effects of those conflicts. You have a situation in Gaza right now There's also a situation in Ukraine. And then, all over the world, in Africa, in the subcontinent, Asia, you have these like pockets of terrorism that keep emerging. How do you see these conflicts affecting economic development, progress, and, even individual freedom and autonomy, for that matter?
So I don't know how much Pakistan spends on defense. And I don't know how much Pakistan spends on education.
Much more on less on education.
But regardless, right?
Right.
The more you spend on defense, the less you can spend on other things. Right? And defense is important, don't take me wrong. But if I destroy you and then I have to reconstruct you, I am using resources that I could have used to have done something else.
Broken window of fallacy, yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Right? And so, unfortunately, in my view at least, I don't see any benefits in conflicts, in wars or any other form of conflict. Yeah. Just because, again, the opportunity cost of building militaries or rebuilding after destruction is an opportunity cost. Like you could have invested in a human capital and have a much more productive population.
Do you think that if it had not been for maybe the U.S. armed forces post-World War II and then after the Cold War, their presence all across the world allows for possibly free trade to actually occur? Otherwise, if the U.S. did not have maybe the naval power that it has across the global seas, we would not have had the free trade and lower cost of transportation that we have right now. Do you think maybe defense is a cost of trade?
Again, I'm not saying that we should not have any defense, because human nature is such that aggression cannot be taken away. But there is this half joke that two countries with McDonald's don't go to war with each other. Mm-hmm. So there is something about trade that allows you to see the benefit of interacting with another person and not or with another country.
And avoid conflict.
I rather trade with you on long term as opposed to try to kill you and steal what you have.
Right.
So, I think I'm more comfortable, maybe for normative reasons as well, with relying more on trade itself than on war to make trade possible.
Interesting.
This is I'm conflicted because I think it's a normative position that I have.
All right. Let's move on to maybe a different topic. Like one thing that is of interest, I think, to institutions like Prime is the quality of economic thought that comes out from formal institutions. Now, we feel a lot of the times that even though we have many graduates from formal institutions coming into fields like economics or even STEM, but maybe the quality of those individuals and their training is maybe not adequate enough. We're also seeing across the globe a preference for people to go for a master's degree as opposed to opt for higher trade skills and such. So, and for that reason, maybe Europe is running out of plumbers and electricians and things like that, and people from Pakistan then get to go and do those jobs. But do you think there are any improvements that could be made in education across the world? Do you think the way that we structure the development and the skilling of a person in our societies is actually the right approach, or do you think we could do something different and achieve better outcomes?
I can speak for economics. Mm-hmm. Right now, at least in the US and Europe, economics is becoming very, 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 very technical, so that there is no space for ideas.
Right.
And Maybe I'm biased because of my background, but I do believe that ideas play a big role. And so I'm not saying that the technical part is irrelevant, but I'm saying that to complement it with ideas would be helpful. Another way of saying this, and it may be like in a broader picture, is, again, I'm going to use Adam Smith. Adam Smith believes in division of labor and specialization. So it is very important to specialize. Because as you specialize, you're able to develop a very deep understanding of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the division of labor is not the whole story that Smith tells you, right? You specialize with trade. You have to trade.
Right.
If you don't trade and you specialize, you're going to be in trouble, because you're able to specialize in the production of pins only because you can trade those pins. If you just make pins and you don't trade, you're going to eat pins.
Right. Right.
Right. So you have to trade in order to specialize. And that, I think, is important with all disciplines, with education as well. Right? So it is very important to specialize, but you need to trade. So you need to interact with the disciplines.
So you're saying that interdisciplinary training is maybe the way forward. All right, interesting. And so, I mean, Prime has been involved in public policy. I think we exercise some kind of soft lobbying also on the government when we do our research, publish it. It has an effect. It is able to change minds. So you worked also on lobbying, and you live in the heart of lobbying. It's the United States is maybe where lobbying is the most organized and maybe the most monetized as well. So if looking at Pakistan, looking at institutions like Prime, how do you see our role in improving government performance? Or do you think it is a counterproductive role, and that lobbies actually inhibit the development of frameworks and the development of markets and development of governance institutions?
Right. So I think that there are probably different kind of lobbies, and the lobbies that I'm thinking of are not
labor unions, trade unions? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So those kind of lobbies are, in my view, quite dangerous, because what they are doing is trying to promote privileges. Right? So I want benefit for myself.
It's special interest.
Exactly. And if there are damages to others, I don't care. I just want benefit for myself. Right. So special interests, lobbies as special interests, I think are very dangerous. Right. And in that case, competition is not necessarily good, because it just multiplies the
complexity, maybe?
No, it just multiplies privileges.
All right.
Lobbying as a think tank, you're not promoting any special interest groups.
Yeah, we tend to think of it as general interest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're just working with ideas. So you're not saying I'm using sugar just because somebody mentioned sugar before. You're not saying, oh, you need to protect sugar industry, right?
Or allocate resources or subsidies and so on. Yeah.
I think I think of Prime more as an educational institution. And you educate the public, you educate the government, but you're not necessarily pushing for privileging certain groups over others systematically.
Yeah, not intentionally
right.
At least, yeah.
While the lobby that I'm thinking of, I'm systematically trying to privilege one group over others.
But how do you restrict such groups from emerging? I mean, I think maybe the whole reason why labor unions emerged so strongly during the rise of communism and socialism was that they literally felt that they were underrepresented, and in what we see is usually, whether it's industry or any kind of sector, the entrepreneurs tend to, come together and try to organize themselves better. And there are certain advantages to it as well. For example, they can develop interoperable systems, learn how to communicate with each other, and maybe deliver better outcomes in some cases. But how do you really restrict them? Because, even in the constitutions of most countries, the freedom to associate, the freedom to organize, I mean, that is there. So do you think that fundamentally, or do you think that the development of these lobby groups, it's unnatural and it's manipulated into being? What is your understanding?
There is a difference between forming an association for the benefit of the people who are in the association, and being able to capture state power to benefit yourself. Right. So I can have my association of trackers who like Pakistan.
Right.
And we can have our meetings, and we can have our sessions, our advertisement, promotion of certain tracks over others, and that's perfectly fine. But is a very different association than the one that is going to the government and say only trackers of Pakistan
have the right to
to do certain things. That's a very different situation. Well, be careful, because a lot of the policies that, at least this is what Smith says, look with a lot of care at the policy that come out from the government, because basically all of them, or most of them, come from special interest groups. So be very, 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 very careful about what's the source of that policy.
Right.
And be aware of the fact that despite the rhetoric of saying what this is great for the country, most likely is great only for a part of the country and damaging for the rest.
Right, right.
So being more cautious and conscious about the presence of a special interest group may be a solution. But again, Smith wrote 250 years ago. We still have the same problems today. So
that's right. We just crossed the budget season. That was back in June, and during that time, being in Islamabad and working so closely with the federal government, we saw a lot of instances where special interest groups rose up, organized themselves, and really began to bargain with the government on what kind of budget should be developed. And a lot of reform measures that the government maybe have wanted to bring in, and not necessarily saying that there were some predictable outcomes from those, but they were blocked by these lobbies, and these are mostly political issues, and the politicians cave in very quickly as well, especially when it comes to special interests, because there is some money involved, and I think money legitimizes also many government functions. But we've seen this happen in front of us, and I think despite all the sophisticated lobbying that takes place, the government of Pakistan still is unable to, really clean up the system and make it work. Now, let's talk a little bit about the future, right? In the context of the past, of course, from all the things that we've learned. Now, seeing the economies of the world evolve, the monies of the world evolve, maybe, in the next 100 years, are we moving towards a society that is much more different from what we have right now? Or do you think now we have come to a place where we can continue to grow in a more stable way? We don't need a revolution. We don't need things to collapse. Do you think we're maybe, headed in the right direction?
think of the world 100 years ago. Could you have predicted where we are today?
maybe we would have. I mean, a lot
Years ago, there was no radio, no television, no phones, no smartphones. Right? Automobile were starting to enter, like, to be developed, but the amount of technology that we have today in a smartphone is unthinkable.
Yeah.
Right? Even 50 years ago was unthinkable. So I think that there have been immense changes in the past 100 years. And there's so far nothing that would make me think that in the next 100 years there would be equivalent, if not more, those changes.
Right. So yes, technologically we've seen great progress.
Right. And we're starting to see now with artificial intelligence major changes that can be potentially revolutionizing and changing completely the way in which we operate. It's difficult to predict in which direction they will go, but it's also, I think, difficult to say that the next 100 years will be the same as today.
Right. Right. So you don't you think that even in terms of governance, which is maybe one of the most stagnant sectors of the economy, do you think fundamentally we will see major changes in governance? Is that what you're saying? Because I mean, I feel that really we haven't really had any innovation in this sector, really.
In government.
In government, public service.
I mean, again, I think of how maybe not 100 years ago, but I think of 200 years ago. How was the government of this area?
Well, colonial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? It was very different from how the government is today. Why
Would it not be? Yeah.
would I think they would be exactly the same? I mean, there are inertias, especially in the government, right? The government tends to be unwilling to change just because of the incentive structure that is present. Is not the most entrepreneurial institution in the world.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's not changing.
Right.
Like I'm looking at like Italy. 100 years ago was a monarchy. Now is a republic. So Pakistan didn't exist 100 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned AI, artificial intelligence. Now, as somebody who studies economics, teaches economics, and then also, has this exposure to public policy, how do you see the interplay between governance and artificial intelligence evolving over the next few years? I mean, we've had maybe primitive or proto technologies like computers who have had some effect, but maybe not so much. But in terms of artificial intelligence, do you think it really affects how you perform at your job, educating young people, and then maybe doing your research, and then also, in terms of public policy, do you think AI offers any opportunities that have previously not been available?
I went to elementary school before computers.
Yeah,
right?
Me too.
And if you asked my elementary school teacher about computers at that time, she would not have known what they were. Or even at the beginning, she would probably say, yeah, but I can still do my job without computers. I don't think that today there are that many elementary school, at least in Europe, where computers are not present. Right? And even here, I have seen several very young children with smartphone in their hands.
That's true. That's a major problem.
But nevertheless, it's a reality, right?
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't, again, artificial intelligence become part of our education, just like computers have been part of our education? So I think it's just a question of wait a couple of years and you will have it perfectly integrated into your curriculum.
And what about, do you see any opportunities in improving governance and government through AI? Do you think public policy practitioners now can maybe do more complex jobs and maybe even centralize plan better? What do you think?
That's a difficult question, just because I think that when the current U.S. administration came out with the tariff plan,
Yeah.
it was done through an artificial intelligence.
Is that so?
And so some of the tariffs were completely off.
Yeah.
Because they messed up the prompt.
Okay.
So yes, I think there is space for improvement, but you have to be careful of the prompts that you use. Although you can mess it up otherwise,
Yeah.
or at least double check.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it seems intuitive that government would be one of the most keen adopters of AI, simply because machine learning requires access to large databases, and governments have traditionally been in the business of developing large databases and manipulating results through such databases. So definitely there are opportunities, but I am not sure what they are. I think I feel similarly to how you are thinking about this issue as well. Maria, I'd love to talk some more, but we're running out of time now. It is such a pleasure to speak to you, and thank you for your time. I think one thing that happens when I am interviewing Pakistani experts is that when I ask them any question regarding any diverse topic, they will generally have an answer for it, even if it's not a good answer. But I think with academics, especially those that are disciplined, like Maria, when you ask them maybe something that they have not really gone into, so they're humble enough and honest enough to admit that, they have limited knowledge on the topic. And I think I appreciate that really much. Your insights on money, I think we could have a 4-hour conversation on this and still not run out of, things to talk to about these. But, lovely to have you here. I think Pakistan would benefit a lot from the perspective of international academics, and if more academics visited Pakistan, we could see, better prospects for higher education here as well, better outcomes. There are, of course, many, many weaknesses in the educational system within Pakistan, and then, of course, the many weaknesses that are in economic policy as well. These are things that need to be addressed. Of course, there are always innovations happening within government, but most of it, I think, is driven by politics and not by intellectual thought and some kind of drive to create something that is more robust, stable, or sustainable for the longer run. With that said, we close off this episode of Liberty Chalk, and till next time, see you guys later. Allah Hafiz and goodbye.